Hello, it's Sheridan from Nexajob, and it's nice to have you back. I'm going to be talking today about international candidates that have come to Australia and they're looking for work. It's a challenge, very much understand that. Just a quick snapshot about me. I've been a recruiter for over probably 13 years, worked in all different areas in state government, federal government, local government, private sector, not-for-profit. So I place people in all of those different areas, pretty much around about sort of the 60K up to about 100 and a couple of hundred grand, that type of area. So, and I've helped so many international people looking for work. And so, for instance, someone that's come overseas and they had this big expectation to continue their work, what they've been doing in their homeland. Say, for instance, like a procurement officer or a financial accountant or a finance manager, and they've come here and then they've gone to work driving a taxi. It's so disheartening to see, but I've seen a lot of it. I've interviewed a lot of people, and the way that I've helped them in that area is quite a few different areas that I'll sort of suggest. So maybe get out a piece of paper and a pen, and we can work through some of the areas that might sort of help you find work. And sometimes it's a quick, easy process to find work. And sometimes it's a very, very long, drawn out. Just thinking one example that comes to mind, a procurement officer. He had been here in Adelaide for a couple of years, and he's been working in a warehouse doing packaging. And he's a procurement person, and he was a procurement manager back in his home country, and it's taken him 2 years to find something. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but anyway, that's just an example. But he was persistent, and he built up his networks, and he kept in contact with them, so it really paid off in the end. So where do we start? Got the pen and paper ready? Also, just to let you know, in various spots around Australia, it's a little bit different, such as Sydney and Melbourne. They're going to be basing your skill set on technical abilities, whereas places like Adelaide and Perth are a little bit more conservative, and it's all that relationship building and networks and getting to know people and building up that level of trust, rather than Sydney and Melbourne, which is a little bit faster pace type of recruitment process. So, okay, the best tips that I can give you is, one of them is be persistent. I know it's tough, but be persistent. Keep on doing what you're doing, and you will eventually get there. So that is definitely the best tip that I can give you. Expand on your network and get out there and get to know people, and especially if you're in some of those states that do rely on those relationship building. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get one, and make sure it says that you're here in Australia. Start to build your network on LinkedIn. You can reach out to recruitment agencies. Just to let you know, there is around about, approximately 400 recruitment agencies in every state. Some of them could be sole traders, but there's a lot of bigger ones, such as your Hayes and your Randstad, to name a few. So depending on what your profession is, so you can reach out to those recruitment consultants. So you place in the search bar Hayes recruitment consultant, and it'll bring up those recruitment consultants, and maybe try and connect with them and just say, hey, can I send you my resume? Looking for work in XYZ and available immediately. Generally, some of those agencies won't look at you unless you've got local experience, but it's just part of that being persistent. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is professional. Want to see, ties, shirts, jackets for your profile, and it's not a Facebook profile. So what else can if you can connect to attend regular networking events. So if depending on, where you're living, contact your local council or view the, perhaps more the bigger, so say for instance, if it's in Sydney, New South Wales, there's Sydney Council, have a look at their events, try and attend those events. If it's in Victoria, look at the Melbourne City Council, look at those events or any type of local events, or just try and get some guidance as to what sort of events that might be coming up. Try and attend them, meet some locals, meet some people in that area. So that's all about the building up your network. And if you've been able to establish a friendship group, ask them if they know anyone that might be looking at hiring, or can you send your resume, or those types of areas, or try and do some work experience. If you are going to go down the track of doing work experience, maybe trying to get your own work cover, public indemnity and liability, because if you do work experience somewhere, then they don't want to pay for that extra cover. So that's something that you can actually obtain yourself and suggest, look, I'm happy to come in, 2 days a week or 3 days a week for a couple of months. I've got my own work cover, really want to get that experience. And if there's a possible job at the end of that time, then that would be great. So, and another one is to make sure your resume is looking absolutely perfect. Now, you might think your resume looks great, but how does it sort of compare to other people? So if you do apply for a job and a recruitment agency rings you back, ask them feedback on your resume. They love giving feedback on resumes. Well, most of them do. I know I do, because I'm helping that person. So, with the career aim, make sure you have a career aim. Recently moved to Australia, looking for work in this area. This is my working rights. I've got clearances, and that's another thing too. Get clearances, get working with children check, get a police check. Don't wait for a job, do it now. And make sure you have that on your resume, because it really solidifies that you are staying here and very, very keen to look for work. So that's definitely, and how do you get these working with children checks? Just check on Google. So I know for Adelaide, you'd put in WWCC check Adelaide, working with children check Adelaide, and it will bring you to Department of Human Services. Then you'd go through that process. So working with children check, highly recommend if you, and it doesn't necessarily just cover off working in education areas. There are a lot of councils that require working with children check, and also a lot of not-for-profit. Another check that I'm seeing a lot more of is NDIS. Look, if you want to go down the track of getting a few clearances, it's always tax deductible. So, but I would highly recommend, because if they've got someone that has local experience but doesn't have the checks, and they need someone to start immediately, or as compared to someone that has overseas experience but has the checks, I think you might be running a little bit higher if they're needing someone to start immediately. So that would be my recommendation. And just going back to your resume really needs to be pronto. I would get advice. I would pay someone to do your resume here in Australia, because it might be very, very different to your homeland. Like, for example, UK resumes generally focus on responsibilities as they're on their resume, whereas in Australia, achievements, whereas Australian resumes tend to focus on responsibilities. So that is a really, really a strong point. So you might want to have a think about paying someone, between $50 to $200 to get your resume up to scratch. And look, you might have a couple of different areas where you might want to work at. Say, for instance, some people I've seen might have project officer experience, but they could also do admin and, data entry as their sort of fill-in roles while they're looking for something more professional. So you might want to keep that in mind as well. So, okay, so we looked at professional networking, LinkedIn profile. Make sure your Facebook is really clean as well. Don't want to see posts about, negative things, and because recruitment agencies recruiters will check out your LinkedIn and your Facebook if they're interested in perhaps contacting you for a role. So yeah, keep it clean. Just sort of thinking about some areas that might sort of be helpful as well. I'll just give you an example of something that was quite amazing that happened many years ago. I had a South African guy who was brilliant. He was an IT project manager, absolutely fantastic, well-skilled role. I put him forward for a position that I thought he was highly suited for. And then I had an IT project manager who was from Australia, but he had excellent engagement skills. So he was able to build up rapport very, very easily, whereas my South African candidate, part of their culture is a little bit more not so fluffy with the responses and building up rapport. He was very sort of factual and to the point. Unfortunately, he didn't get the job. I thought that he was actually the better suited candidate. I think he would have really done very, very well. Now, he was going through so many job interviews and not getting any jobs. So I stepped in and I said to him, I'm going to give you some coaching because I believe you are a wonderful candidate, and the problem that you're not responding in a way that we understand and building up that rapport. Now that helped him. Never got him a job, but that helped him. I remember seeing him a couple of years ago, and he said, if it wasn't for my coaching and understanding those cultural differences, I will never be where I was. Now, isn't that fantastic? So I'm just bringing that to your attention. Understanding those cultural differences make a massive difference to building up that rapport and building up your network. So I hope that has been of help to you. And certainly, by the way, just in small print here, there's no judgment, there's no racism that I'm mentioning. This is all very much to help you find work here in Australia. As I mentioned before, I've been a recruiter for over 13 years, so I do understand, and I've helped so many internationals find work in Australia, which I'm very, very proud of, and they've been very thankful too. All right, so all the best, and feel free to leave any comments and like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.